What's up, sports bettors? The goal of this video is to make some money and also make you a more informed sports bettor. So let's get into it. We're going to be looking at PrizePicks, Underdog Fantasy, and really explaining why the picks I'm showing you are all mathematically profitable. So yesterday we gave out some plays on Underdog. We had some cashes. We almost won our plus 1900, 250 to win 5K. So it all came down to Mike. He couldn't get a hit, but obviously when you're playing 250 to win 5K, you only have to win 1 out of 20 times to break even. So these are fun and, we'll make money in the long run, but obviously when you're playing at plus 1900 odds, we can't expect to win every single day. But let's get into some of the picks I have for today on Underdog Fantasy. So the first play I ended up going with is Bobby Witt under 1.5 bases. So if you're new to the OddsJam YouTube, we really try to focus on strategy as well as the picks we're going with that you can tail and we believe are profitable. Well, not believe. I know this pick is profitable. But essentially, it's just like we really want to focus on making you a more informed sports bettor. Like when I was a quant on Wall Street, I've been betting very seriously for a lot of time, is there's a lot of traps people fall into in terms of, sports books promoting all these big parlays and they think that's the way you're supposed to bet on sports. It's like if a sports book is promoting something, that's probably not the way you're supposed to bet on sports, right? The way you're supposed to bet on sports is by following the data and just following logic, right? So what makes sports betting so fascinating is every bookmaker essentially prices the exact same asset or bet independently, right? DraftKings has different odds on Bobby Witt under 1.5 bases than Caesars, than FanDuel, than Pinnacle, right? This is just Pinnacle Sportsbook. So Pinnacle is the most efficient, sharpest sportsbook, right? If you look it up, they allow arbitrage betting, whatever. Like they're known to be a very sharp bookmaker. So their lines are very accurate. And what you'll notice right here, and why does this bet have a 5% profit margin, like whatever, what you'll notice is like, wow, every sportsbook has Bobby Witt Jr. under 1.5 bases, heavily juiced, right? Caesars has it minus 167, but they have a bit more vig in their market. DraftKings minus 160. But long story short, every bookmaker has the under favored, right? So if we take the market on Caesars as an example and we remove the vig from it, so this is really the most important calculator on OddsJam. It's called a no vig fair odds calculator. I really recommend reading it as much as you can. Until you really internalize it, you can ask questions about it. But what it does is it just takes a sportsbook's market. So here is the market on Caesars and removes the vig, right? It just removes the vig, removes the juice from Caesars' market, So essentially what we'll see is, hey, the true odds on Bobby Witt under 1.5 bases is going to be minus 133, right? According to Caesars, the true odds with no vig is minus 133 for Bobby Witt under 1.5 bases. Now on Pinnacle, it's minus 165 plus 122, so we can go ahead and put their market in. Minus 165 plus 122, true odds minus 138. So we essentially treat every bookmaker as an independent data point and try to get a sense of okay, what is the whole market as a whole? Some sports books are sharper than others, Pinnacle, whatever. What is the market as a whole think that the true odds are for Bobby Witt under 1.5 bases? And it's minus 136, right? And we're getting minus 122 on Underdog Fantasy in a 3-pick or 5-pick entry. So we've kind of gone through before how to convert the lines on Underdog Fantasy into sports betting odds. So you can compare, Underdog Fantasy to the sports books, but that's, a full-length video in and of itself. So you can watch some of the tutorials in the end screen. We have a bunch of videos about PrizePicks, Underdog Fantasy, how to back out their lines, stuff like that. But essentially, Underdog Fantasy, PrizePicks, you can browse odds completely for free on OddsJam. So you can see where is Underdog setting the line, where's PrizePicks setting the line, yada, yada, yada. Compared to the sports books, and look for value, right? Value is all that matters in the long run as a sports bettor, so you should always be looking for value. So anyways, let's get back to it. So the first play we have is Bobby Witt, under 1.5 player bases. Great. Next play we have is Mike Trout. Same play, under 1.5 bases. Every sportsbook has the under heavily juiced. Under's a lot more likely to hit. We're playing this in a 5-pick entry, so the implied juice we're getting is minus 122. And we can just go through it quickly. Like, if you're playing a 5-pick entry, what you'll notice is you're betting, $100 to win roughly $2,000, right? Plus, $1,900 in profit, $2,000 total, including your stake. So essentially, because Underdog Fantasy, they don't vary their payouts depending on if you select the overs, the unders, right? You're always going to be getting the exact same, payout, which you'll see right here. It's always 100 to win 2,000. It doesn't matter what you pick, right? It doesn't matter if we switch picks, anything like that. We're always getting 100 to win 2,000. So essentially, Underdog Fantasy is giving you the implied juice, implied odds of minus 122 on any player prop you look at. So the second pick I have is Mike Trout, under 1.5 player bases. Very similar reason, right? The positive EV betting tool on OddsJam, you can basically blindly bet this page. You can, bet on every single pick on this page and you'll make money, right? This page, obviously higher profit margin is better, but all this page does is scan Underdog Fantasy, compare the lines on Underdog Fantasy to those on, the sports books, FanDuel, DraftKings, Caesars, Pinnacle, BetOnline, and show you where are their discrepancies, like where's their value in the odds, right? There's no BS, there's no, Bobby Witt, him and his, girlfriend broke up, so he's not going to get on base today. There's no BS, right? It's all just data, which is the only way to consistently make money sports betting long term, right? Follow the data. It's very simple. Treat sports betting like an investor, like a hedge fund, like a whatever, where you're looking for value constantly because value is value, right? When every sportsbook is pricing something minus 167 and you're getting it minus 122, that's just a play you want to go with, and it's a no-brainer. You don't have to know anything about baseball, Bobby Witt. It's just a good bet. So that's the first play I went with. Mike Trout, under 1.5 bases, I went with. And then a very low profit margin play, but I needed 5. I want 5, is I went with Ronald, under 1.5 bases. So you can see there's some plays on PrizePicks as well. And again, hopefully you've been able to go through this sheet and you really understand how does a 4-pick power play on PrizePicks work? What's the implied juice? What about for a 2-pick, 3-pick, whatever, right? Because 3-pick entries on PrizePicks are terrible, right? You're getting minus 141 implied odds. On Underdog Fantasy, you're getting minus 122. So, whereas for 2-pick entries, the juice is still pretty bad. It's minus 137, minus 137. So that's why 4-pick, on PrizePicks, power plays are really optimal if you can find 4 picks. And then on Underdog Fantasy, it's kind of like 3-pick. But anyways, I'm not done. I have 2 more picks, which I'm going to show you right here. So the first thing I did was I went to this I may have to refresh it. It's just coming out in beta, so hopefully I can even show it in the first place. But there are 2 picks that I really like in the player receiving yards and the player rushing yards market. So it looks like it's loading. It's just loading extremely slowly. But regardless, this play is worth waiting on. So what you'll notice is what this does, this screen as it's called, is it essentially just shows you where sportsbooks have their line set and what their odds are side by side. So as an example, we can see here, Chris Olave in the Vikings-Saints game, his OU for receiving yards is 54.5 on PrizePicks. Underdog has it 62.5. So that's a pretty big discrepancy, right, between where sportsbooks are setting the lines. So what I did is I just opened up ESPN, whatever, tried to get a sense of which of these plays do I want to go with because I wanted 5. So here he's had 80, 147 receiving yards in his last couple games, so that's not really an under I want to take on Underdog Fantasy. And, kind of the reason is 8 yards is a big difference. That's a big middle, right? but there's no other lines except for PrizePicks and Underdog Fantasy. So it's kind of like, you're kind of trying to figure out who's smarter and who screwed up here, right? Maybe they both screwed up and it really should be 59.5 or something like that. And that's where the sports books are going to open their odds. But it's obviously a little harder to see the discrepancies here. Whereas for Jamar Chase, it's easy, to see that, wow, they're overestimating Chase, considering every sports book basically has the line for Jamar Chase set at an OU of 71.5 receiving yards. So if you're looking for a good under on Jamar Chase, 76.5 looks incredible. So there definitely is a good bet here. It's just hard to tease out which one. So what I ended up looking at is Mooney next. 29.5 is where PrizePicks has his receiving yards line. Underdog Fantasy is 40.5. That's a big difference. Really big difference. So there were some differences I looked through, and what I noticed about, where is he? So let's go here. I had a couple of different ones I looked at. Is Mooney, he's only had 27, receiving yards, 11 targets, though, on the season. They're throwing him the ball, So, I don't know, the under, seems pretty good. And again, it's not like we have a lot of points of comparison for, man, this really does go slow. And it's not really like we have a ton of comparison on, where the line should actually be set. But 29.5 to 40.5, that's a huge middle. You could bet over 29.5 on PrizePicks, play the under on Underdog Fantasy, and that would be a good middle. 11 yards is a massive middle, considering his receiving yards is so low. That's 2 receptions for this guy. So this is a big middle bet. And, I ended up taking the under on Underdog Fantasy. So that's pick number 4. So we got Trout under, Witt under, Ronald Jr. under, Darnell Mooney under 40.5 receiving yards. I mean, hard not to like it. Guy has 27 receiving yards on the season, and this is an 11-point middle. So we're just using data, using lines to kind of inform our betting decisions. So you can see here, if we go to, Mooney, PrizePicks, 29.5. And Underdog Fantasy, if we just look this guy up, 40.5. So that's a huge difference, right? So just using OddsJam to kind of tease it out. So then I think I looked at Pittman, which I thought was interesting. Pittman, 60.5 to 69.5 was the middle. I mean, he's gone over both games, so I'm going to skip over that one, but it is a big middle. And the final play I looked at was rushing yards. So we have the biggest one I could find, which I thought was pretty interesting, was Williams in Raiders-Broncos, Devontae Williams. And what you'll notice is wow, this guy has gone under 2 games, over 1 game. Broncos, they're matching up against the 0-3 Raiders. They'll probably be down, I'd have to guess, against the Raiders, but I don't know. The Raiders are 0-3. So I do they'll probably be passing the ball, but long story short, I took the under for him too. That's a massive middle. 50.5 to 60.5. That's a big middle. So one of these bets is wrong, right? There is a good bet here. We just don't have a lot of points of comparison because sportsbooks haven't posted, player prop odds for the Sunday games yet. So it's a little harder to tease out where the value is. But regardless, I ended up playing it. So you can see it right here. 5 picks to $100 to $2,000. That's what we're doing. We're turning $100 into $2,000. We got Trout, Witt, under. We got Javonte Williams, under 60.5 rushing yards. Mooney, under 40.5 receiving yards. Ronald Jr., under 1.5 bases. Unders feast. Let's make some money. Using data to find sharp bets. What's more fun than that? Let's make some money, guys.